All right, welcome. You have tuned into KDOI Podcasting. That's Chemo's Den of Iniquity. Hi, I'm your host, Timothy Chemo Bryan. And on this podcast, we create more than we consume. We reach out to our audience members, to our listeners, to our deplorables, to those that have ears to hear, and let them know that they're not alone out there in the world. They can go ahead and create more than they consume. And we want to encourage you and inspire you to do that through these interviews that we've had these past 12 episodes. We started off last year, for those of you that are just catching up to us, started off last year in September with the second annual Fredericksburg, Virginia Independent Book Festival, where we launched this podcast. And I also launched a couple of more books that I self-publish. And you can get those books on Amazon if you so wish, desire, and choose to. I highly recommend them. Shaving Crop Circles in My Chest Hair is my latest and greatest book of poetry. And Two Princesses is a very, very short story. It's a bedtime story for my two princesses. And it works pretty well for them. They're almost 4 now. And by the time the podcast here airs, they'll be a little bit closer to 4. Anyhow, a lot of people have asked me, hey, Tim, why are you doing this podcast? And I had to ask myself, why am I doing this podcast? Well, I was inspired by my job, actually. My day job, of all things. Go figure, right? I work for the man, I work for the federal government, and it inspired me to do a podcast. Well, folks, I work for the United States Army. I'm an Air Force veteran, but I work for the Army because they wanted to hire the best, so they hired me, right? And what I do is I help soldiers transition either back into the fight or out and becoming into veterans. One of the things that we use is art therapy to help these soldiers out with whatever ailments that they have, whatever battle injuries that they have suffered. We do use art therapy to assist them. And it can be kind of scary because the military world, if you're not familiar with it, is kind of a macho world. Even for the females, it's a macho world. You don't show a lot of weakness. You don't show a lot of emotion. You don't want to brag about yourself. And I've noticed this, especially in the Army, that you don't want to brag about yourself too much. You don't want to draw too much attention to yourself. And the art world, that's how people find out about you, is by drawing attention to yourself. So I had a number of soldiers, approach me in the smoke deck and say, "Hey, Tim, I do this drawing. I did this painting and did this drawing. Hey, what do you think?" Because I'm a safe person to talk to. They know I'm an artsy-fartsy kind of guy. They know I'm a theater guy. They know I paint. They know I podcast. And I would always tell them, hey, no, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And that's a great piece of art. And they're like, no, it's shit. I can't draw. It's not worth it. And I would always encourage them to do art, to do the art therapy, and actually show it to other people. Go get it outside of the art world, get it outside of the therapy world, and get into the art world, and get it into civilians' hands, and see what they have to say about it. But there's a lot of trepidation on their part in order to do that. I know for myself, I didn't consider myself a veteran artist until I was well out of the military and started to hook up with different art groups in the Chicagoland area, namely Vet Art Project and Warrior Art Studio. So definitely a big shout out to those folks that ran that. And hopefully both of them are listening to this podcast this fine evening. But yeah, that's my basic inspiration for the podcast. That's why I do it. I want to reach out to my listeners and to my audience members and say, hey, listen, you can do this. Don't be the person that says, no, I'm not an artist, or no, my art sucks. Put it out there. Some people aren't going to like it. Some people don't like my art. Some people don't like my podcast. And that's okay. I'm good with that. I do it because I enjoy doing it. I always really enjoy having some good critique shot back at me. And you can do that at kdoipodcasting@gmail.com. And that's kdoipodcasting@gmail.com. or you can get on the Twitter site. It's at KDOI_podcasting. But yeah, I do look for that critique. I am always wanting to improve and get better at what I do, and I want you to go out there and just try it. For God's sakes, just give it a shot. No one's going to shoot you in the head for it. You might get some critique on it. You might get somebody that thinks it's absolutely fantastic and wants to pay $1 million for it. By all means, why gyp yourself out of $1 million? Go for it. Knock it out of the ballpark. Okay? I encourage you to go ahead and do that. You never know what's going to happen, what you're going to run into. There's a podcast that I listened to that I got involved with a while back. Dave Jackson, he's a big podcast guru in our field here, in our circles, and he's got a little side thing called, because of my podcast ... And it's all about, people, because of their podcast, great things that they're able to do, or that they were able to do. And so I would say, if you want to start a podcast, get in contact with me, and I'll help you out and see what I can do for you. I'm not the world's greatest podcaster, but you know what? Nobody tries harder than I do to do the type of podcast that I do. So that's my personal challenge to you, is get out there, do something. Let us know about it here at KDOI Podcasting. And we'll definitely want to put it up there and let other people take a look at it and get you some critique, get you some connections, get you whatever you need to take you to that next step. Okay, so for those of you that have been with us since day one and have been following me on Twitter and Facebook and all that, you've noticed that I've gone through some changes, shall we say, in my voice. There's been a lot of challenges that has hit me since September, actually since February of last year. And some of those challenges are I've had 4 surgeries, which is remarkable to have 4 surgeries in a year's time frame. I did it back in 2014. I had 2 carpal tunnel release surgeries, both wrists, and 2 kidney stone surgeries, both kidneys. Well, this past year, I've had my tonsils removed. I've had some benign nodules removed out of my nasal cavity. I've had an umbilical hernia taken care of. I had neck fusion, C4 through C7, and I've had brain surgery just here in February of 2018. And recovering from all of those surgeries has definitely been a challenge to this podcast. But I can honestly say to you that the podcast is one of the things that have kept me going. And since September of last year, we have not missed a date for a release of podcasting, for the release of the podcast. I've always kept it every other Saturday at 0700 hours Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. I don't know the difference between Daylight Time and Standard Time. I just know one makes me really tired, and then the other one gives me an extra hour of sleep. And I think we're going to the one that makes us real tired here, probably by the time this one comes out, but maybe not. So I've had some challenges. I've also had some challenges with the learning curve. Learning how to do all this podcasting stuff, learning how to interview people, and just learning how to schedule it and do all the audio and just work that. I didn't get any of this through school, but I did get this, a lot of this through a good friend of mine, Kyle Bondo, over at Merchants of Dirt Podcasting and gagglepod.com. He started a meetup here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, of all places. I mean, go figure, Fredericksburg, Virginia, the new mecca of podcasting. Dave, if you're listening, this is the new mecca of podcasting. We're going to take over, all right? Forget about Ohio, forget about Florida. It's going to be Northern Virginia taking over, as well we should. Kyle really helped me refine what the podcast is going to be about. It took me through a lot of steps on how to make it sound good, how to market it, and really take it seriously. Because, folks, I used to be on Blog Talk Radio. I used to do a call-in show with my friends, and it was fun. but it was a joke. It wasn't serious. Nobody was taking it seriously. Least of all me. I wasn't taking it seriously, and I had a good crew of friends that helped me out with that. But I knew it was time to do something a little bit more on the serious side. So that's why you're getting this podcast. It's more on the serious side. It allows me to utilize my artistic talents that I have, and to put it out there to the world of what I have to offer, and to interview people that I know and other artists that I may not know, and talk to them about what keeps them going, what inspires them, what keeps their trigger nice and toasty, shall we say. So we've been able to refine this podcast. Each episode gets a little bit better, although I do got to say that the second episode that I had with Nelson Velasquez was a fantastic episode. And I mean, start out of the gate running with a conversation with him is fantastic to do, and is really up to my game. And the people that I've had on the show have all upped my game in some way, shape, or form. So the first person I want to do a huge shout out to, not Dave Jackson. Dave Jackson, you're a fantastic guy. You do a great podcast. But Kyle Bondo over at kdoipod.com, over at merchantsofdirt.com, and his new podcast, which is podfader.com. It's all about the podfader effect and what that's all about. I definitely want to thank him for helping me make this a serious effort, and keep holding me accountable and keep me accountable. And he's even allowing me to do a talk on interviewing skills for podcasting. So I look forward to doing that and standing in front of people that are live right there in front of me, as opposed to you folks here that are not standing here in front of me, but in my mind's eye you are, and we're all naked and looking at each other and going, some of us need to put some clothes on, and I'm probably one of them that needs to put the clothes on first, because you're all in my man cave as I look at you, and some of you are comfortable with that. Others of you are not so comfortable with that because, well, you're sitting on my recliner that vibrates, and that can leave naked people that aren't used to that very uncomfortable. So get off the recliner there and turn off the vibration. Okay. So Kyle, definitely a big thanks and a big round of applause to you for getting me serious about this podcasting stuff, and definitely my audience members need to be checking out his podcast. The gagopod.com is where you can go to find out more about how to do a podcast. Podfader is how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls in podcasting, and Merchants of Dirt is all about off-road racing. So if it's got something to do with dirt, you want to be listening to that podcast. So we've had about 13 episodes, if you want to include my initial episode with all these episodes. And out of all those episodes, we've had two folks that don't consider themselves artists. Well, let me put it this way. Both of them said to me, I'm not an artist, Tim, why are you having me on the show? And I said, well, I think you are an artist, and I think you contribute a lot to the artistic community, so I want you on this show. And the first one was with John DeMaria. He's a martial artist, which I think is a form of art. And we had a wonderful conversation. And after about a half hour, 45-minute talk with him, I actually convinced him that, yes, in some aspect, you are an artist. And he took that to light, and he took that ball and is running with it right now. Mike Porter, he is a comic book store owner. He's my comic book guy. At the time that we interviewed him, he was closing down his store, but now he has reopened in a new store. He doesn't own the store, but he is operating out of a store, which I think is a fantastic thing for him to have done. So he's closing one door and opening up a new door, and that's what we titled that show, Opening Doors to Creativity. And we talked to him about what he does and his creation process. Of course, he steadfast is saying that he's not an artist, but he does have a few projects underway and in tow that he will be working on, and I will encourage him to work on. And that's one of my duties, I feel, as an artist, is to encourage other people to try art and to keep on doing their art if they're doing art at all. And if they're not doing art at all, find out why they're not, and then encourage them to do that art. So we've had 2 folks that said they weren't artists. We've had one folk that said he's kind of an artist, which is my good friend and former student, Curt, who works for the Navy as a flight engineer kind of guy. But he is doing a lot of fantastic work in his field, and he's using a lot of the lessons learned in the theater class that I taught him, and he's still using those lessons to this day. And it's been, oh my gosh, that was back in 2002, so something that he learned 16 years ago, he still uses to this day. And that's the impact an artist can have on somebody. That's an impact a teacher can have on somebody. When I was going after my master's degree, it's in theater education, and it's the art of teaching. And teaching is an art form. So maybe in the next season or 2, we'll get some teachers involved in here and pick their brains and see how we can really get an A+ instead of the grades that we usually get. So we'll check that out. And as everyone who has listened knows, we have final projects that all of our guests were looking at doing. So I'm going to go through those final projects for you here, just to kind of remind you and give you a little heads up on where they are at this point. And you're going to notice a lot of similarities. And artists are weird like this, but you're going to notice a lot of similarities that we all have. And let's go over those. So my final project was I wanted to create a performance space in an art school. And in that performance space is a bookstore, coffee shop, strip joint, jazz cafe, and a place where people can talk politics and do some avant-garde art. And I want it attached to a school so that way it can feed the neighborhood and serve the populace that's around it. So where am I at with that? Well, guess what? You're part of that art school. Ha! You didn't know that you were in school, but listening to this podcast, you are in school. So enjoy that for yourself. I will be collecting tuition next week. Nelson Velquez, what did he want to do? Well, he wanted to do a art school, and he wanted to do it in a downtown building. And I challenged him to come up with a fight song for the art school, and I challenged him as to tell me what his mascot was. So the mascot for Nelson's art school is the Drowning Badgers, and he's going to be developing a fight song for that in season 2. Annessa Ferris, she wanted to create a comedy album. She's a singer, songwriter that I know, that I've known for a long time. And, not that long, because she's not that old. And neither am I. But she wants to create an album, a comedy album, and a regular album, since she is a singer. And so definitely we want to support her in doing that, and whatever way, shape, and form we can do that. Maybe we'll get with Nelson, who's an improv guy, and do a little comedy for her. Ashley Hutchins, my tattoo artist. Tattoo is a art form. It's an ancient art form, and she does tattoos very well. She specializes in black and gray. Well, on me, she does strictly black and gray because that's the style that I like that she does. She does other stuff with color and whatnot, but I think her strongest suit is the black and gray. She's also a photographer, and she used to do photography. That's how I originally met her in college, as a photographer. But now she is strictly. I don't want to say she strictly does tattoo. She photographs her tattoos, and her main source of income is tattoo art. What does she want to do? Well, she wants to take a trip around the world to be inspired. Whether that be write a book, do a painting, make a tattoo, sing a song, whatever that ends up being, she wants to go around the world and just sit and be inspired by whatever she sees. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I would love to do that myself. And being the Sagittarius that I am, travel is something that I always have in my blood. I've always wanted to travel, and I've always done travel, going to new places, meeting new people. And that's why I love podcasting so much, is because of my podcast, I've met some interesting people, and this year I'm going to meet some more interesting people. John DeMaria, one of my non-artists, quote unquote, but he's a martial artist. He wants to write a book. Why not? Everybody out there has a story. Everyone out there has a story. You listening to my voice right now, you have a story in you somewhere, somehow. Something that is either happened to you that, if you want to, you can fictionalize it to protect the innocent or to condemn the guilty. But everyone, I believe, and I have to believe this, has a story in them. Whatever that story is, definitely put it in book form. You can self-publish, and we'll talk more about that later. I mean, myself, I've got 4 books of poetry out there that I've self-published, and my children's short story that I've self-published. It's easy to do, and we will show you how to do that for sure. So we'll be looking for John's book in the new year, and we'll see where he's at in season 2. Mike Finlay. Oh my gosh, this guy I have known since my SIU days, Southern Illinois and Carbondale days. If you ever run into him, just call him Fire Guy. He'll know what you mean. That's a little inside story between he and I. And if you ask politely enough, I will tell you what the story is. But Mike Finlay, he is a playwright. He's a poet. He's a novelist. And he's an all-around good guy for you to listen to. He wants to complete a play and see it produced. And it can be in podcast form. As a matter of fact, he's talking to me right now about doing a podcast. So for an upcoming book that he's going to have. So maybe we can weave that into his little web there and pick his brain and see what season 2 will bring, and definitely encourage him to continue on with that. Ramon Charez, another art school guy. He's an improv guy that I know from Chicago, and poet. He wants to build his own art school in Chicago, of all places. Go figure. Art school, Chicago? No way. But what he's going to do for his project is a telethon. So he's going to utilize every dirty trick in the book. He's going to get his daughter to sing. He's going to get his wife to show up. He's going to get people to do crazy stunts just so that way he can raise enough money to open up an art school in Chicago. And I think Nelson wants to do an art school in Chicago as well. We're not done with the art schools yet, kids. Myself, I can do an art school anywhere. I would prefer to do it close to home, so that way I don't have to travel. But I do love to travel, but I've got kids, all right? I've got a family to look after. I'm tired of going around the world. Y'all need to come to me every once in a while. So we'll try to open up a couple of art schools in Chicago while we're at it. All right, so we are down to Mike Porter, who runs the comic book store, the comic book store that no longer exists on its own. It used to be known as Little Fish Comics. Now it's over in Sage Mantis in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and it's a store within a store. I was just recently there to pick up some comic books. And Mike looks kind of happy, behind the counter. He's a little less stressed out and a little bit more... he's always been talkative to me because we're kindred spirits, but he's doing really good over there. And I'm glad that he is still doing what he loves to do. What does he want to do? Well, he wants to write a graphic novel for Alfred in the DC universe. Now, who's Alfred? Well, that's the butler for Bruce Wayne, also known as Batman. So some of you may be big Marvel followers and go, oh, Jarvis. Well, Jarvis is with the Avengers, but Alfred is with Batman. And so Mike wants to go ahead and do a story, a graphic novel for Alfred, do an origin story for Alfred. And I think it's going to be a really good thing. So we're going to definitely encourage him to go ahead and knock that out. Ken Reed. Oh my gosh. Ken has been on Chemo's Den of Iniquity, the old show, many times as a voice actor. And he's a great improv guy, although he won't really admit to it. He's a really good poet. But his main, and he won't admit to that either, but his main suit is in film, producing films. And lately he's been getting into improv, so which I doing stand-up and all that. So we definitely want to keep on encouraging him and doing that as well. His final project, he is going to do a film that eliminates all cliches. A film that eliminates all cliches. So think about all the films that you've seen, and if you can figure out what who the killer is, or who's the next person to die, or who's going to fall in love with who, those are cliches, and those are formulas and formats that work just about every time. Well, he wants a film that has no cliches. The hero dies in the first scene. The black guy doesn't get killed, or isn't a drug dealer, or isn't a pimp, or isn't a pusher, or anything like that. So we're going to help Ken do a film on a podcast. Don't ask me how. It's going to happen. Okay, you have to have faith in these things with art. So we'll check that out. Ethan Rush. He's the one that I've known the longest because he's my nephew. So I've known him since he was born. He does hip hop in Madison, Wisconsin. So if you think doing podcasts out of Fredericksburg, Virginia is weird, hip hop out of Madison, Wisconsin, a little bit weird. But that's okay. He wants to write a book about small town histories and local fables and feelings. So if you go to a small town and if you ask, the locals there, hey, what's the deal with this town? Where do you go for this, that, or the other thing? Where do you go for the story? And the locals always know. So he's going to write a book. I don't know if it's going to be about multiple towns or if it's just going to be one small town that he's going to do. But we definitely want to encourage him because, you know what, we need more books out there. We definitely need more books out there. Curt Cabot. He wants to make a movie with Tom Hanks for Wake Island. He also wants to do a theater club, and he wants to do a fitness program called Spank. Not Spank the Monkey, just Spank. So, if you don't do your lunges correctly, you get the paddle. I like that idea. The theater club, again, another theater club / theater school person here. So we're going to make a lot of schools. And then his episode with Tom Hanks in Wake Island and getting Tom Hanks to get involved with that. If you have a contact that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows Tom Hanks, reach out to them. We've got a wonderful movie idea that Curt needs to pitch to Tom Hanks. So I'm calling on all my listeners out there. If you've got any connections, any possible connections, any improbable connections to Tom Hanks, let us know at KDOI Podcasting at gmail.com, and we'll get Curt in contact with Tom. Heather Moon, fantastic painter. She does a lot of other artwork, but she is a marvelous painter, wonderful person, just warm and inviting. I met her at a party a long time ago where we were just sitting and talking about politics, art, philosophy, life in general. And we've been fast friends ever since then. She wants to paint a mural that makes people see reason. Not necessarily world peace, mind you, but she wants to make a mural that will make people see reason, and maybe they'll change their minds about certain things and be able to accept certain things. And we'll see what happens with that. We'll see what mediums that she's using. Heather Meyers. Wow, that was my last interview for this season. And we had a wonderful time laughing, giggling, reminiscing about old times, patting each other on the back, probably breaking each other's arms, trying to pat each other on the back. Heather is a literary reader for American Blues Theater, a theater not sponsoring this show, but that's okay. We're going to let them continue on with what they're doing. We're not going to harass them, harangue them too much. Whenever I'm in Chicago, I make it a point to go see a show by American Blues Theater. But yeah, she's one of the big wigs over there, and she also runs Ripped, which is playwright development. Ripped from the headlines. So shows that are very timely, and Blue Ink, which is a playwriting contest that's run by American Blues Theater that brings the best and newest playwrights some well-needed recognition and production as well. She wants to create a theater school. Go figure. Theater school, theater school, theater school, theater school. Out of all these episodes, like, we have 5 schools that are going to be built. So folks, we're going to need your money. We're going to need you all to come in and really kick it when we do the telethon with Ramon, because we're going to do one telethon, and if we don't get enough money, we ain't going to do it. All right. So you're going to have one chance to make a lot of people really happy. So the reason why I give you these final projects that everyone was discussing was because of the Satanic 7 questions. Now, those Satanic 7 questions are sometimes the more you get more in depth with what people are doing, with what people are thinking. They're done in fun. I score them for fun. Just to put some sort of value on it. It doesn't really matter. The numbers don't matter. It's just it's kind of like slam poetry at the Green Mill with Mark Smith. So what? The numbers don't really matter. It's just people are out there sharing their stuff. Same thing with this. The numbers don't matter. It's just people are talking about what they would like to do if they didn't have any barriers. This is what they want to do. So I think that's a wonderful thing. And in season 2, we're going to try to bring them all back and see where they're at in their projects. And if they're not that far, that's okay. We're not going to judge that. But I do want to see everyone get at least a little bit into what that new project is going to be. So that's why we bring up the final projects every time. Is that's my catch to bring you into season 2. Now, let's say you're an artist and you're like, oh man, Tim, I didn't know about this, and it's going to be season 2. Don't worry about it. Shoot me an email at kdoipodcasting@gmail.com, and you will be included in season 1, and we'll also include you in season 2. So I'm still looking for folks to talk with, and even if you're not a quote-unquote artist, I think you all are. But even if you're not a quote-unquote artist, if you're just starting out, shoot me an email. I'd love to sit and interview you and talk with you on the air and knock that out for you, and just absolutely encourage you to do something with your life. Which brings me to season 1.5. A lot of you thought, oh, hey, Tim, don't we go into season 2? No, we go into season 1.5. What is season 1.5? Well, folks, that's going to start in April of this year, and it's going to run all the way until September of this year. We're going to have 12 episodes, 12 different projects. Now, those projects are going to be fairly cheap. I'm not going to make you do anything you don't want to do. By all means, do the projects, shoot a picture of it, and then shoot it back to us so that way we can show everybody what you're doing. The projects are going to be very low in monetary cost for you. First episode, we're going to have you build a book clock. Next one, you're going to have a candle to do. Next one, you're going to be doing a pencil drawing, color pencil drawing. Next one is going to be make a frame out of found wood. And if you got to go to Lowe's to grab some wood to make a frame, that's fine too. But you're going to frame that painting. The next one is going to be an oil painting. That one might run you into some cash. Next one, you're going to write a book of poetry. Oh my God, I'm going to make you write a book of poetry. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's so easy. Next, write a song using Magic's software. Oh my God, I'm not a musician, Tim. Don't need to be. We'll hook you up. You know what sounds good. Next one up after that's going to be wood burning. We're not going to burn wood and call that art. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a slab of wood, we're going to take a burning tool to it and draw a picture on it. Next one is going to be a comic book collage. Mike Porter is going to hate me for this, but I'm going to cut up some comic books that he sold me and make a collage out of it. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Next episode is going to be black and white photography. Episode after that is going to be create a found sculpture. What do you mean by create a found sculpture? What I mean is you're going to go around and find pieces and create a sculpture with it, whatever those pieces are. Glue them together, staple them together, burn them together, I don't know. But you're going to do that. And the last project is going to be a bookcase. You're going to do a bookcase to hold all these projects. So, I'm going to do these projects right alongside you. I'm going to show you step by step how I did it and let you know how much it cost me. And at the end of it, you'll have 12 objects, 12 pieces of art that you did between April and September of 2017. And that's something you can put in your room and go, you know what, I did this. I did all of this right here. And they're great conversation starters, and people will go, well, hey, can you make one for me? Can you show me how you did it? By all means. Refer them back to the podcast, or tell them, or do both. Refer them to the podcast and tell them. But that's going to be season 1.5 for you. Something that I've always asked everybody to answer in the podcast is, final thoughts, words of wisdom that they would provide. Let's take a look, see what Nelson said to us. Art is a reflection of who we are as a person. That was his final thought. And I really believe art is a reflection of who you are as a person. Even if you're quote unquote not doing art, the art that you do is a reflection of who you are. So if you're just taking a nice timid step, that's okay. At this point, you can be timid, by all means. Later on, make big, bold, beautiful mistakes. Why not? Annessa, she says, make time for yourself. Cultivate and touch others. By all means. That's one thing that I have to learn myself, is to make time for myself. And I like to cultivate others and touch others through this podcast and through my art. Ashley says, take a minute, listen, be a person, and be inspired. Again, it's taking the time out for yourself. Folks, we got a very hectic world that we live in. And we're bombarded on all sides by advertisements. We're bombarded by advertisements everywhere. Everything's got an advertisement. Your email, advertisement. Your Twitter account, advertisement. The TV, full of advertisements. Heck, watching PBS, because they never have commercials. Guess what? They got commercials, kids, because they got to keep the lights on, the doors open, and the roof over their heads. I get it. I understand it. We're bombarded every day with multiple things that are, demanding our time. Well, why not take some time out for yourself and do something for you? And then, all that other stuff is still going to be there. Trust me. All those other stresses will still be there, but if you take some time out for you, then that's what you need to do. One thing I've learned in the past year is take the time out for yourself. It's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. So if you can take the time out, you'll thank yourself later on. John, 30-minute talk to convince him that he was an artist. That's it. That was his final thought. It took me 30 minutes to convince him that he was an artist. Right now, we're getting close to approaching that 30-minute marker for this podcast. Can I convince you that you're an artist? Well, I'll challenge you. Email me at kdoipodcasting at gmail.com. Come on the show. We'll talk. And I'll show you in 30 minutes that you are an artist. Mike Finlay, if you're going to do it, then do it. Make it essential. Do your work. Treat it seriously. Treat it like a job. But, treat it like, don't treat it like a job. Treat it like a career, because there's a difference between a job and a career. A job you go to because you got to go to. A career you enjoy having. It's because you chose it. So choose that vocation. Ramon, utilize any open time you have, whether it be in the train, in a car, driving. No, don't do it while you're driving. In bed, the 5 minutes before you truly get up in the morning, utilize any of that open time that you have. So we have some people saying take time, and we have other people saying utilize time. time is of the essence. We need you to go ahead and do what you need to do and share that art with us. Mike Porter said, courage, have faith in the victory of the vulnerable, be open. That's a quote from his mom, have faith in the victory of the vulnerable. So when you're doing your art, have the courage to do it. Have the courage to put it out there. Be open with it. You may get your heart trampled on a few times, but you know what? At least you gave it a shot. That's the big thing. There's so many other people out there that aren't going to ever give it a shot. You need to give it a shot for yourself. Ken, he gave me 3 things. So the first thing is, pay attention, find a mime, stab him in the gut, and see how professional he is after that. Number 2, stick a quarter up a hooker's ass and ask for change in rubles. 3, set goals high. Kill 2 stones with 1 bird. Figure that out, kids. He lays it out there. You figure out the mystery. Ethan, do art. That's it. That's all you gotta do. Just do art. It's short, simple, to the point. Just do it. Curt, don't take on too much. Focus on one project. All right. So keep that razor sharp focus. And the next person is Heather Moon. Keep at it. It helps keep you sane, and it can help others. And she also mentioned that she does multiple projects at the same time. I do as well. I do multiple projects at the same time. But I see where Curt's coming from. If you're going to do it well. Do one project at a time. Do it to the best of your ability. And give it your full attention. So I agree with Curt, and yet I go against Curt's words. But that's because I was his teacher. So we'll just leave it at that. And then Heather, well, her final thoughts were have a good time. And we were laughing so much that we didn't really get too much to the final thoughts. We just had such a great time with each other. And she's one of those people that, you're going to have a great time with when you sit and talk to her. So we didn't really get to the final thought thing. But, I think she would say, go do your art, take your time to do your art, find out what your passion is and go at it, full bore. And, be gentle with the people out there and be gentle to yourself. So those are some things that she's told me in the past. Well, again, this is Timothy, Chemo, Brian, and this is KDOI Podcasting. DJ Vulture brought us in, and DJ Vulture will bring us out of this episode. This is the season 1 wrap-up, quote-unquote wrap-up episode. If you would like to be interviewed on the show, I'd be more than happy to have you on. kdoipodcasting at gmail.com, where we create more than we consume. That's what it's all about here, folks. Inspiring others to go ahead and pursue their dreams, pursue their art, and then promote those people when they do. So we just want you to be aware of that, and I want to thank you for listening in to this first season. I can't wait till season 1.5 starts up. That'll be in the near future here. That'll be in April of 2018. Oh my gosh, 2018. We'll start up season 1.5, and then we'll start up season 2 probably at the end of 2018, early 2019. We'll get everyone together and do what we need to do with them on their projects. And look for other projects to come out of the woodwork as well. I'm contemplating 2 more podcasts going out. One of them is going to be a podcast of my short stories, and then the other podcast I really can't talk about at this point, nor can I ever really talk about at any point. So you'll just have to see what happens. So we look forward to hearing from you in 2018, and we look for a prosperous 2019 for all of us as well. And with that, myself and DJ Vulture wish you a wonderful night, and see you in a couple of weeks.